This is my 2024 Husqvarna FE450. I bought this thing 7 months ago and converted it into my dream supermoto with my friends. When I built this bike, I had a dream of traveling all over Europe with this thing. I'd been watching those supermoto lifestyle videos from before I could even ride a bike, and I wanted to go and live that lifestyle. So just 3 months after building my dream bike, I quit my job, loaded my bike in my van, and left to go to Europe on the biggest trip of my life. I've traveled through Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, Italy, Montenegro, but after 3 months of traveling around, the summer is coming to an end. All of my friends are heading back home to their jobs, and that leaves me down in the Balkans kind of confused on what to do next. I quit my job for this trip, so I want to make the most of it. By this point, the supermoto season is kind of finished. There's not really anything left to do with that. It was at this point I had probably the craziest idea for what I could do with this bike. If you guys can remember back to when I first built this bike, I made a video where I spoke about this.
So I want to circle back to the reason I actually bought this. I want to ride around the world. If you guys have known me for a long time, I used to go and do the stupidest journey. I would just get on that bike with a backpack full of shit and ride some ridiculous places. I rode that Grom to Sweden from London. It took me 2 days riding about 15-16 hours a day. But since I got into the supermotos, I've always just thought these bikes can't do that. Well, to my surprise, it turns out they are. Guys that have used these bikes to ride around the whole world. People have ridden around the world on EXC FEs. You would never think it.
Obviously, we're not going to go and do a full round the world trip right now, but I did have the idea maybe we could do a little bit of a practice run. I know the Balkans has some really nice trails along the TET, and what really caught my attention is that Turkey is not that far away at all, and I know that has some of the most beautiful trails. Now, I had a little look at the tech map just to get an idea of where I could go, and I noticed this north coast route all the way along the top of Turkey that takes you over to Georgia. If you've never heard of Georgia before, I'm not surprised. It's quite a small little country, but I'd been seeing a lot of videos out of that little country recently, and it looks like the absolute dream for riding. It's just mountains and fields and open space, and it looks like you can just ride forever. So that was that figured out. That's where I wanted to go. We were going to follow the northern tech route across the top of Turkey into Georgia. We'd go and explore the mountains for a week or two, and then we'd start making our way back along the southern tech route, because by that point it would be mid-November and it's going to start getting really cold at that point. And while I was looking at that southern tech route, I noticed Cyprus is not very far at all, and I checked, there is a ferry we can take, so if we've got enough time and enough money, we might take the trip over to Cyprus. So that was our plan set. We knew where we're going to go, we know what kind of trails we're riding on, now we've just got to build the bike for that kind of trip. I mean, the 450 is a really good bike, but it's definitely no good to go and do a trip like that right now. Spending any extended period of time on that standard seat might actually cause irreversible damage to my arse, and we're not exactly going to get very far on that standard 8-litre tank. You only get about 160 kilometers out of it. Luckily for us, there's loads of parts available that can fix these problems, and we're going to go through them all right now, starting with the tires. Where we're going to be riding a lot of trails, obviously the supermoto wheels are going to be no use. But even if we put the original wheels back on that the bike came with, they're not going to be much help either. Now, while they're really good off-road, they're not going to last very long. And where we're riding so far, we need them to last a little bit longer than that. So we've got to go for something a little bit different. Now, this is where making a decision got a little bit tricky. Most of the popular dual sport tires, they're going to be for heavy bikes. And we're riding a 120 kilo enduro bike. So whatever is generally considered good is probably not going to be the best for this bike. What we ended up going for was the Pirelli MT21. Now, while this is one of the most highly regarded tires in the adventure scene, it is also considered to be one of the softest with the lowest lifespan. But this is coming from guys on big heavy bikes, so it should be absolutely perfect for what we want. And on the rear, following the theme of going with softer than usual tyres, we went with a Michelin Tracker. This is a really soft, high-performing off-road tyre, but it's also said to last quite a long time. I'm not 100% sure I believe it, but because they're so cheap, we're going to give it a go anyway. These tyres are going to be a really great fit for this bike. The whole reason we want to use a 450 is so that we can ride it like a dirt bike, and if we're going to go and put some terrible 50/50 adventure tyres on it, it's going to just take away from its capability. But at the same time, we need to find something that lasts a little bit longer than a full-blown dirt tyre. I think these are going to be absolutely perfect. Now, we are using tubes on this build. I know this one's going to ruffle some feathers, but let me explain why.
Why don't you run mooses, Elliot? Why don't you run mooses? You wouldn't get punctures.
If you have no idea what a mousse is, it's basically a big foam ring that goes in the place of the tube. It doesn't hold any air and it can't get punctures. They're really good for enduro and racing because then you haven't got to worry about punctures and getting stuck out in the woods. But I don't know if you've ever ridden with a mousse on the road, but they're not very nice. They're actually quite horrible to ride with on the road. And on top of that, they don't last very long. I'd be lucky to see 2,000 kilometers to a set of mousses. Because we're riding quite far and we're using quite a lot of roads, it's probably just best if we use tubes. It's pretty standard in this community to just use tubes. It's not that hard to change them on the side of the road. Most of the time, you can just use a patch repair kit to fix any punctures. You don't even need to change the tube. And lastly, but probably most importantly, is you can find tubes everywhere. Tell me when you're in the middle of nowhere, can you find a mousse? Probably not, but you could shove a bicycle tube in here in an emergency if you really needed to. Anyway, as you can see, we are getting on with fitting these up now. We used a bit of baby powder on the tube and inside the tire to stop things rubbing. Bit of dish soap to get everything nice and lubed up, and boom, we have a tire fitted. All that's left is to get these fitted to the bike. Now we've got our wheels mounted up, we're going to move on to section number 2, which is fuel range. And on these big adventures, you need as much fuel range as you can possibly get. You might not see a fuel station for 300 plus kilometers. And with the standard 8-litre tank only having a range of about 160, that is nowhere near enough. We will end up running out of fuel. So we're going to have to change that. So what we've got here is an extended 15-litre fuel tank. This holds an extra 7 litres of fuel for us. This is going to bump our fuel range up to near enough 300 kilometers, which is more than enough for what we need. Fuel range kind of all depends on where you're going. In Turkey, it's pretty westernized. There's gas stations in most towns, but I know there's some sections through the mountains where we're going to go quite a long time without seeing any fuel. As far as Turkey, this will be fine, but when you start going really far east, some of those countries have no infrastructure and you're going to go days without seeing fuel. If I was going to go any further than this, I would need even more fuel than this. There is one tank that's a little bit bigger, but it's not by much. If I was going to go out further than this and needed more fuel, I'd probably just get some fuel bags or some fuel bottles or something. But that is going to be a problem for the future because this tank right here is already double the original tank size.
We'll fill it up in the morning, make sure everything's all good, but right now it's getting too dark, so we'll pick this up in the morning. It's the next day now. As you can see, we got our beautiful 15-litre tank fitted up yesterday. It looks absolutely fantastic, as you can see.
I can't exactly say this is the most aesthetic upgrade we've done to the bike, but there's no way around it. We need more fuel. So let's just gaslight ourselves that it doesn't look that bad. It looks so fucking bad, dude. But anyway, we move on. Let's talk how we're going to make this bike bearable to ride that long. Comfort. Like I mentioned at the beginning, a dirt bike is not a comfortable bike for long distance. The seat is very narrow, it vibrates a hell of a lot, and there's no wind protection whatsoever, so you're getting blasted with wind the whole time. The first thing I'm going to do here isn't really a modification because it is just a stock part. I'm just going to be putting it back on, and these are the hand guards. These are just going to keep the wind off my hands up at high altitude so they don't get too cold, and it's also going to stop branches smacking me in the fingers as I'm riding through the woods. I also took the chance to put on some fresh grips since my last ones were looking pretty damn disgusting at this point. I don't know if you guys know that feeling when your grip is getting old. It's like sticky. You know, like when you grip it with your hand and it starts like sticking to your skin as you peel your hand off. It's So we had to put some fresh ones on for this trip. I didn't want to be dealing with that. And these are the OEM KTM lock-on grips, so they really don't take long to change. One thing I did do but didn't do on camera was put the DB killer back in the exhaust. As good as it sounds, it's really annoying for long distance actually. Like even with earplugs, you're getting off the bike at the end of the day and your ears are just ringing. So for the sake of my eardrums, we're going to put the DB killer back in.
What I want to do now is go out and take this for a little test ride, fill up this big ugly fuel tank and just make sure everything's running all right, everything's all good. But there is one more part I'm going to change before we go, and that is the seat. So what I've got here is the KTM Power Parts comfort seat. Most people doing this kind of build are going to run a seat concept seat. They are like the creme de la creme of seats for ADV builds, but I don't have 500 euros laying about and I didn't want to wait for one from America. This one here is only 150 euros, so I thought I'll buy it. It's got to be better than this awful stock seat, but we'll swap this over now and we'll see how it feels on the test ride.
So we've got almost everything on here now. We've got our handguards fitted, we've got our big tank fitted, I've got my comfort seat, and we've got our enduro wheels back on. I have almost no fuel in here right now, so I'm going to have to stop in the first fuel station I see. And believe it or not, this is my first time actually riding the enduro wheels here. Feels about as expected for enduro wheels, pretty damn terrible. I've got about 22 psi in the front, 24 in the rear. So that's 6th gear. We can sit pretty happy at about 80, 90, which is nice. Oh boys, it just bogged out. It's just bogged down a little bit. I just had to do a little wheelie to try and get some of the fuel up to the back of the tank.
So there is a pretty terrible design flaw with the fuel tank on the 2024 KTMs. In all the bikes before 2024, the fuel gets picked up from the bottom left of the tank. When you look at the fuel tank on a pre-2024, you see this whole little assembly on the bottom left of the tank. That is the fuel pickup. You see that the whole fuel pump connects down to that so that the fuel gets picked up from all the way at the bottom of the tank. You think that would be a given so that you can actually use all the fuel that's in the tank, but this is not how it works on the 2024. The fuel pickup isn't actually at the bottom of the tank. It's in this little dip here near the back of the tank, which as you can see, it's higher up than the lowest point of the tank. So because of this, you've still got about 2 litres of fuel left in the tank when the fuel pump runs dry. So even though you've got a 15 litre tank, you've only really got about 12 or 13 litres of it usable. Now there are kits out there that fix this problem, but in my opinion, you shouldn't have to spend money on your bike to fix a stupid design from KTM. So back to the test ride, I only put about 2 litres of fuel in this bike just to get to the gas station. And now I'm running out.
I'm gonna have to just periodically do a little wheelie to get all the fuel to the back of the tank or I'm gonna run out. I promise I'm only doing it to get fuel. Fucking KTM, 2024 KTM, what is this design? Oh no. I hope nothing's coming so I can just cut across. Yeah, that'll do. 98. Doesn't exist. This is a 15 litre tank. We'll see how much we actually get in here now. We've still only got 13 litres in there, so yeah, I'm running out with 2 litres left. Yeah, that's a lot of fuel to have left in the tank. That's fucking heavy though when you wobble that around. You feel that tank.
So apart from almost running out of fuel, the test ride went really well. We know exactly how much fuel we can use before running out. The wheels feel great, the seat feels great. We're getting close to having this bike completely finished now. We have got one more bit that we've got to head back and put on though, and it's probably the most important part, which is going to be the luggage. Doing a long trip like this means we've got a lot of luggage to carry with us, especially because we're going to be camping. And this is the solution to that. No, I'm joking. I would rather shoot myself than put something like that on my bike. So what we've got in these boxes is a rackless luggage system from Moscow Moto. You wouldn't think it, but this is the most expensive part on this whole build right here. I spent so much time researching this, and every single time I pretty much came back to Moscow, which is annoying really because it is expensive. But I am a firm believer in the buy cheap, buy twice mentality. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, it's an expensive upfront cost, but I'm going to get so many adventures out of this thing. It'll pay for itself in the years to come. We'll go ahead and get this installed on the bike so then I can show you exactly why it's going to be so perfect for this adventure. Literally, the only thing we have to do with this bike to get them ready for these bags is drill these 2 small little holes in the rear fender in order to install these 2 cleats. All we have to do now is throw the whole system over the seat like this. Then we have 2 straps at the rear like this that you just kind of thread in and leave a little bit loose for the time being because we have 2 more at the front that we're going to have to do in a second. These side ones are going to be a little bit different for everyone. On my bike, this was actually a little bit of a pain in the ass because where I'm putting it now, you can see that it's right next to the exhaust and there's not really anywhere else you can put it on my bike without having it all the way down and around the foot peg, which just doesn't work. So it's a little bit sketchy having it next to the exhaust. I was really worried about the strap melting, but we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just find a decent spot to thread it through, tighten it up. On every single one of these straps, they have these fancy little strap tidies that helps you just keep everything nice and tidy. This is where this starts to get interesting now. We've got these dry bags that come with it. This is how all of our stuff is going to stay dry. So this bag here has my camping setup in it. It's got my tent, sleeping mat, pillow, sleeping bag liner, and a few changes of clothes in this tiny little bag. I'm good at packing. I know you don't have to tell me. Now this just slips straight into what we've already installed on the bike, and then you've got a few little straps to tighten up to secure everything down. But once it's all in there, it's going to be solid as anything and completely watertight. I also went with the option of the aux box bags, which is basically a small little 4-litre dry bag that just sort of goes underneath the main 18-litre dry bag. This one is really small, so I'll probably just use it for stuff like toiletries, like my toothbrush, my toothpaste, a towel, stuff like that. And the last bag we have to put on here is the big 20-litre bag that sits up on top. So by default, this top bag is 4 litres, but when I was ordering this, that just did not seem like enough. So I went with this massive 22-litre bag, and it looks huge. It looks absolutely massive. I don't know what the hell I'm going to put in here. I just shoved it with hoodies to fill it up for this video so you can kind of see how it sits. Once this gets strapped down to the bike, you've also got this thing they call the beaver tail that wraps around over the top of it. You can extend this out and put stuff like coats in there, sleeping bags, whatever you want really. It's just where you can shove some stuff. You're not too bothered about it getting wet or not. I found it really useful to roll my coat up and put it in there, and that way it didn't take up too much space in the dry bags. So that is our luggage system fully installed on the bike now. Our total storage space here is going to be 18 litres in each side bag, 20 litres in the top bag, and 4 litres in each aux box, which adds up to 64 litres of storage in total. In here we're going to have stuff like our camping setup, our tools, our spare parts, our clothes, all of our camera equipment and electronics, and the dry bags will keep everything nice and dry so we haven't got to worry about breaking our electronics. Would you guys be interested in a video on everything that I've packed to bring on a trip like this? I could show you my whole camping setup, all the spare parts, all the tools. I would have just done it in this video, but to be honest with you, it would take so long. We're better just doing it in a completely separate video. You've got to think of absolutely everything when you do a trip like this. So we've got some really interesting spare parts and really interesting tools that we're bringing that you might not expect. Now, before we go ahead and wrap this video up, there is a few things I wanted to cover because I already know there's going to be a lot of questions about this in the comments. And that is going to be on the topic of maintenance.
Elliot, how are you going to do the 15-hour oil changes while you're on the road?
You do not need to change your oil every 15 hours. I know, it's controversial, right? This only seems to be controversial in the supermoto scene. In the dual sport scene, this is pretty common knowledge, but yeah, those 15-hour oil change intervals are for competition use. If you're racing and absolutely beating the shit out of your bike. For light trail riding and road riding, you don't need to change it that often. You're putting almost no strain on the engine or transmission when you're riding it on the road. Go and watch a hard enduro race and tell me that you are riding it that hard on the street. I guarantee you're not. You can obviously change it more often when you're at home because it's not really that inconvenient when you have a garage, but when you're traveling on the road, trying to find oil and somewhere to change it every 20 hours is a pain in the ass. So when I'm at home, I'm changing my oil every 15-20 hours usually, but on this trip, I'm going to push it out to about 40 hours. And believe it or not, that is completely fine on this bike for this kind of riding. There's companies out there that have pushed the oil changes all the way up to 60 hours and sent the oil off for analysis, and it's come back with very little oil degradation at 40 hours. As long as your air filter's clean and your valves are in spec, you can really push out those oil changes. It's not that much of a problem. What is going to fuck your oil up really quickly though is slipping the clutch. So if you're absolutely abusing your clutch, it's going to fill your oil up with clutch material pretty damn quick. What you should worry about a hell of a lot more than oil changes is keeping your air filter clean. That is probably even more important. You can get those pre-filter socks that go over the top of the air filter, and they're amazing and they make it super easy to clean, but I couldn't find anywhere to get one before this trip, so I'm just going to have to deal with cleaning it normally. Also, on top of all of this, you can get a clutch cover that increases the oil capacity by about 300 ml, so this engine will hold about 1.5 litres. If you've got more oil in there, it means it lasts a little bit longer. So with one of them, you could probably push about 50 hours between the oil changes, but they are quite expensive. And I'm only going for 6 weeks. If I was going to do a round the world trip, I'd probably put something like that on. The only other thing I would really want to add to this bike, if money wasn't a concern, was these vibration damping bar clamps. It's a 450, it vibrates a hell of a lot. Your hands start to go a little bit numb after a while riding this thing, and it's not the end of the world, but when you're riding hours and hours every single day, these things do make a big difference. So this is another thing that I would like to put on in the future. But now that all the luggage is mounted up, we are good to go. There is nothing left to do with this bike now. We already went through the engine in my last video and made sure everything was in spec and ready to go. It's got fresh oil, the valves are in spec, we've just got to finish packing our stuff, and then we're going to be ready to go in a couple of days. We're going to be leaving the van at this campsite here where it's going to be safe, and then we're going to make our way on the Trans-Euro Trail across Bulgaria and down to the Turkish border, and that's where our journey will start. I'm not really going to set a time limit for how long this is going to take. The only thing that's really going to force me to come back is going to be the weather, but we'll see how we get on. I am super excited to give this bike a try now. This thing has been a dream of mine for so many years, and we're finally going to go and do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little build series here. If you have any questions on things that I might have missed, drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. I've done a lot of research into what it takes to build one of these bikes into an adventure bike, so if I've missed in this video, I probably know the answer and I can help you out. If you guys are looking forward to seeing how I get on, make sure you're subscribed, turn on the notifications because you will not want to miss an episode of this. Trust me, this adventure is going to be insane. So stay tuned if you want to see me actually ride this thing all the way across Turkey to Georgia, and we'll see you in the next video.